Kelowna, one of the most beautiful places in the world to live, surrounded by provincial parks, pine forests, vineyards, orchards, and mountains. Wouldn't it be great if there was a podcast about our love of Kelowna? Oh no, it's real. This is I Love Kelowna, an interview-style podcast about the fabulous and fascinating people that make up our great city and the Okanagan. Intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, creatives, and anyone who has an interesting story to tell about how they're contributing to our wonderful home. This is I Love Kelowna, and here's your host, Luke J. Minkus.
So, Deanna and Neil, thank you for coming. You have an interesting story of coming to Kelowna. So you both came independently around 2007, but Neil, you were actually born and raised here.
That's right.
So tell us the backstory, how you both ended up in Kelowna in 2007.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us for starters. But yeah, for me, I grew up in Kelowna for the most part. And in 2004, my wife at the time and I and our son moved to Edmonton to explore a job opportunity that I was offered. And we lived there through a few of the winters there and ended up moving to Calgary as well. And really, in the last couple of years in Alberta, as nice as it was, we were really feeling the pull of Kelowna again. My parents live here, and it just started to be more important to get back here.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, I actually grew up, I think my parents moved we were in Cochrane. I think I was in grade 4, grade 5, moved here, and did high school here, went to Boucherie. Couldn't wait to leave. So I graduated and packed up my little 74 Super Beetle and drove away.
Right.
I went to university in Edmonton, and then I actually taught English for 10 years in Grand Prairie.
Wow.
Yeah. And came back here because I'd written a novel there and it got published, and I thought, wow, what if I could do this writing thing full time? So that was actually at the end of 2007 too. And I moved back. My mom is here. She lives just around the corner.
You're right.
My sister is here and my brother is in Vancouver. So it just seemed like a great place to come and raise kids, and the opportunities here for sports and everything are great.
So you feel very differently about Kelowna today than
oh my
you
goodness,
did when
yes.
you left. Has it changed a lot?
Well, I've changed a lot. So yeah.
I was actually thinking about that this morning because when I left, I didn't really have any real attachment to Kelowna. It's just where I grew up, and it seemed exciting to move away. But I don't know if Kelowna changed a lot and I changed, or Kelowna more than me, or me more than Kelowna. But definitely something about it made it way important than it was before.
It's for me, it's the perfect size, and it's got just enough sort of the art and cultural stuff and tech stuff that's going on is super exciting. I don't know if I would want to be anywhere else, actually.
Yeah. So, Deanna, tell us about Club Penguin. For those who haven't heard, most people, I think, know what it is, but a lot of people don't. So,
Club Penguin was, at its pinnacle, ended up to be Disney's #1 virtual world for kids. And there were over, 200 million penguins, maybe, I'm going to say.
So a penguin is the kid.
Oh, sorry.
It's part of the club.
That's right. It's a virtual world. So kids logged on. They created a penguin for themselves. They logged into this world, and they waddled around and made friends. And it was an absolutely genius and magical product that Lane Merrifield and Dave Crisco and Lance Preeb created and grew. And I was lucky enough to be a little part of that as a narrative designer for 5 years. And then I moved on to brand and marketing, where I got to work on Club Penguin and also some other Disney brands that were it was just really exciting. And I'm still connected to people I worked with there some of my best friends and some of the most talented and creative people in the world, I would say. So that whole experience for me was life-changing and really lucky. Really, really lucky.
Right. So what is a narrative writer? What would you actually do?
Oh my goodness. So we would, every month on Club Penguin, there were different events and parties. So like in October, there'd be a cool Halloween party. And then in December, there'd be a Christmas party. And then there would be a festival of flight. And what we did is our job was to pull kids in through story. And I got to be part of the story team for 5 years. And we created just a lot of different things for kids to unleash their imaginations in. And it was basically a framework. Like if you had a stage, this is how I always sort of thought of it. If you had a stage and put costumes and maybe give a few little script lines and then enough space for kids to just absolutely put their own spin on everything. We were just supposed to like set the stage and a narrative framework, and they did actually all the work and magic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like would have been a really fun job.
It was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful. It changed my life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Neil, you actually are a mathematician, but now you're doing animation.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being a mathematician to an animator?
Oh, well, it kind of started as an animator artist and then math major and then back to artist. But it was really just a case of just being in love with drawing and animation and cartoons all through my childhood. And then in school, that didn't really seem like something you want to do, especially as you get towards grade 12. It's time to get serious and really figure it out. And at that point, I was looking at maybe being an architect or something with sciences because I enjoyed that in high school. And I kind of made my way through university, not really being terribly successful at anything, but I gravitated towards math, and I could do that well. And I ended up in my final year with, almost getting my math degree, and I realized, like, what am I going to do with this when I get out? I appreciate all the people that are math teachers, but I didn't want to do that. And I just happened to see an advertisement in a newspaper in Kamloops for a summer-long animation program that was being offered at Okanagan College in Vernon. And it just seemed really like magical timing. And, I had enough money left to take it. So I just took it that summer and, tried to freelance for a year after that and didn't really do well, but ended up, finding work in that field, and it just kind of went naturally from there. So it was just a case of the worlds aligning. Do you draw a lot in your spare time? Like even when you were in school for math, were you still drawing all the time? Not at all. I didn't. I would say I really didn't draw in high school even. I didn't take any art until my final year of college, where I took a drawing class just to fill an elective. And that kind of was a nice little spark as well, realizing that I still love to do it and I'm still decent at it.
Interesting.
The animation thing was a real stroke of luck, because at that point it was when Toy Story had just come out. It was a long time ago, but computer animation was really hot. So it was something that really, there was a tech element to it as well. And it seemed like you could make a living at it. And maybe 2 years before that, it wouldn't have been the case.
Right.
So it was just good timing, I think.
Yeah. So what's the difference between a motion designer and an animator?
They're kind of the same in that you're creating motion, but I would say an animator, you're largely creating characters that move. And a motion designer is more, you're creating moving graphics. So when you see a commercial for a sporting event or something, and the titles fly in and they, evaporate, or there's some cool effect or something like that, that's motion design. Okay. Yeah.
Makes sense. So the two of you worked together for a decade. Is that where you met? At the Walt Disney Company?
We'd known each other a little bit before, but that's where we really got to know each other. We actually did a video, Karjitsu Fire, I think, was the first time we really worked together.
Oh yeah.
We were brainstorming and doing storyboards together, and
Right. And I don't know, are you a couple?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
So was it at Disney that you started dating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And it's great, people say opposites attract, but I think like it's really good when you have something in common that you love doing.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you guys talk about animation and stuff at home? Or do you kind of leave work at home?
Craft but we talk about stories and, ideas we want to explore and how we do it. I feed into what Deanna does and she feeds into what I do. So, but we don't really nerd talk about animation or anything like that.
But really, like this is how we spend our spare time. Like we decided early on, because we both have jobs.
Right.
We both have kids.
Yeah.
So between us, there are 4 boys, and it's busy. Life is busy.
2 each?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have like between 13 and 20. Right. There are 4 very, very busy people in our lives and hungry, really hungry. But we sort of decided early on that if, we wanted to make stuff on our own, we just had to put time into it. So that's what we do with our spare time. We were up early this morning working on a new idea. That's what we do. We don't really we don't waste time. That's sort of our thing. If we want to do other stuff, then we need to make time for it, and that's what we spend our extra time on.
Would you say that one of you is stronger in a certain aspect of the work and another one in a different aspect?
Oh, yeah. We both complement each other.
So tell us a little bit about that, like some of the differences and how you help each other.
Sure. Well, Deanna usually is the one that comes up with the initial idea, and it might even be just a sentence or like, this book started off with Deanna just sort of waking up and saying, what if there was a little girl who had a goldfish and she just carried it around with her everywhere? And then we started going back and forth on that, and that's where I think that's my role at that point, is to sort of start feeding into different ideas, and then we bounce back off each other, and eventually we end up with something totally different. But totally that piece will usually stay there, that initial piece. Yeah,
and then from there, because the story from after the idea, sort of there's a natural back and forth that happens. For example, for Snazzy cat capers, like Ophelia von Hairball is our hero, and she's a cat burglar who's a cat, and really, she was always a diva. But once Neil came up with the character design, she was not just a diva; she was a stylish diva. So a lot of back and forth with character comes.
Well, plus even the visual of the cat, there are a trillion different cats and how to draw them, but Deanna originally said, it'd be really cool if she was like a Himalayan with a really squashed face. And I thought, that's interesting. What if it was really squashed and just a flat face? And then,
and so that's what you came up with. Yeah. And that helps you to develop the character.
That's right.
You see a visual.
That's right.
Yeah.
So then you take my laptop, and I'm not joking. I've been in the corner of every school gym in Kelowna because my son plays basketball and volleyball, and that's what I do while he's practicing. I find a little corner. Most of the custodial staff know me and think I'm some kind of weirdo sitting in the corner of these school gyms, and I come up with little story bits and then feed back and forth, and it really is very collaborative.
Yeah.
Art, yeah.
Huge.
Oh, that's cool. How many books have you written so far?
In this series, we've written 3.
Mm-hmm.
The first one's been released, and the next 2 will release in a year after the first, and then a year after the second. So we've got those 3, plus we've got other books that we're working on.
Just the ideas for, and we'll send them to our agent, and yes or no, but the process is fun, and it keeps us sharp in our craft for our jobs too. So it's kind of a really beautiful back and forth we get to do.
Yeah. How do you stay focused? As a somewhat creative person myself, I really enjoy the process of bouncing ideas around and coming up with concepts, and I might have 15, 20 ideas bouncing around in my head at the same time. But without focus, a book never gets produced. So do you schedule time? Do you have a timeline or a kind of a framework of this book is going to come together by June 15th, for example?
Sometimes we have to because of
deadlines.
Yeah, timing for our agent because she's driven by different events she has to go to, or the publishing world operates on different timelines. So we know that in March there's this thing, and it's best to get your stuff in then. But if we're just working on something for ourselves, we don't usually schedule time. like we have kind of recurring times that we always work. Like some mornings we'll work before work.
Yeah.
We'll get up, we'll have coffee, we'll, do a little bit. And we try to in the evenings most of the time.
But I think what you're saying is interesting because I think there's a very big distinction between ideas and getting shit done. Because that, like, those are very, very separate things. And we often see a lot of ideas, and like I'm sure with this podcast it's the same for you, like a lot of people talk about doing something but they don't actually have the drive to like get it done and all the nitty gritty, and it's not fun. It's like
there's a lot of tedious aspects to this, like,
absolutely but there's something like that drives a certain kind of people to either ideate or to do stuff, and luckily we have a bit of both. So we want to get stuff done. We want to do things. We want start to finish. And even if they don't get produced into something fabulous, they've taught us something, or they're sparks for a new idea, or they let us work with different people. So,
yeah. Well, this is actually the 109th interview.
Oh my goodness.
But I've only published 58 because the editing and the posting and the tagging, it's a little bit tedious. I enjoy the conversation so much more than that technical part.
That's right.
But it has to get done, otherwise, it's not fair to the audience, not fair to you, and it's not fair to the creative process. Like, we've done this great conversation.
Yeah.
People deserve to hear it, right? Yeah. So I've got to do that part of it, So, like, this book, for example, it's beautiful. Tell us, so you wake up with an idea,
and
you
then
start trying, you wake him up, I've got this idea. So tell us some of the steps that happens between having this brainstorm, you start drawing, and now we've got this beautiful printed material.
Luke, it's messy.
It
is a messy.
A lot of back and forth.
Like 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years for this. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of talking and just sitting at the table, and like we get so much work done at our kitchen table. It's just that's where we spend most of our time.
Do you have a notepad when you're chatting, or
I usually have a sketchbook, and Deanna's usually writing on the computer.
Yeah, but I have about 3,000 notebooks.
You do have a lot. Yeah.
I can't live without. I like paper.
But it's really just trying to figure out, like, going from that initial idea. So, okay, then who is that character, and what is she trying to do, and why does she carry the fish, and how the fish is in a bowl, so that's an obstacle. How do we enable this fish to be a character that's not just trapped in this thing all the time? And just trying to work through the problem solving bits of it, and then getting more into the details and trying
the story
to really round it out.
Yeah. So are you doing most of the writing, Deanna?
Yeah, I do the writing. Yeah.
Okay. But you're bouncing off the ideas
always
with each other all the time.
All the time.
Will you write a section and have Neil look at it?
Yes, but more often than not, and it drives him nuts, and he puts up with it. More often than not, if I read things aloud, I catch errors, I catch words that I don't like, words that don't feel good in my mouth when you read them out loud, and imagining parents doing the same. So as I read, I edit, and it drives Neil crazy. But
because it's audible, right? And
it's like,
it'll just be 3 words,
wait a second,
and then a big pause,
and then on my keyboard.
A few more words.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes he pretends to listen, but
I listen.
Maybe.
Now, is this a case of, like, you wish you could do this full time, or do you really love your jobs as well, and do they harmonize nicely?
They really harmonize really well. My job, actually, I'm working for a company out of Montreal called Carebook. It's a tech startup, and it's really different than what I do just creatively, and there's a lot more strategy, and there's a lot of things that I do in my real job that I don't get to do with this, because there's a fabulous team at Macmillan Publishing who does all the strategy stuff, and they have their marketing people, and so it's actually the best of both worlds to have both things going on. And Carebook lets me work 4 days a week, and then so I have like an extra day to type cat burglar stories and stuff. So I just feel so lucky that I get to do all of these things, and I think who knows what the future will bring. If somebody says, oh, here's like $10 billion, I don't know. Advance. But
obviously that would change things.
Yeah, but I really I I love my schedule right now. I love what I'm doing. I love all the different skills I get to use, and because I like marketing writing too, and I like product writing too, and I like app writing, and I just like stories, and I like telling them in all kinds of different ways. So
sure,
yeah.
I want to ask both of you, dealing with kids. So we've got 4 daughters between us. I've got 2. She's got 2.
Okay.
We have an 8-year-old that doesn't live with us because she lives with her mom on the coast. But we've got 3 teenage girls in this house. And how do you deal with scheduling? I mean, you're so busy with your full-time jobs and the work that you're doing. How do you give the kids enough attention and keep them out of trouble?
Yeah, I think we give the kids enough attention. It's usually when the kids are around, they're kind of running the show, and we're running them.
We're running them everywhere.
To go.
Yeah,
and it's more about when we have to get stuff done, just trying to fit that in the little nooks and crannies of time that are left over. But yeah, it's super busy.
It's very busy.
Sometimes it's different. Like my kids are with me every second week.
Oh, okay.
So then my schedule frees up on those off weeks.
Right.
And then, depending on Deanna's kids, their schedules.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are tournaments out of town.
We're full-time chauffeurs first, and then we have our jobs. And then, honestly, this is about getting time in those nooks and crannies. And sometimes it's 15 minutes, and that's all we have. And so we try to be really efficient people, actually, is what... Yeah, you
have to be efficient. Do the kids take any interest in your work, or they're just like, they don't want to know about it?
I think they think it's cool, but I don't think
they don't ask questions. They don't want to see the manuscript or...
Oh, no. When they were younger...
I think they get enough of us just telling them about it. I don't feel like they're lacking for information.
No.
Right.
Just like we get it. You're sending that out or...
It's the same here. Same here.
Yeah.
They're here in the house, but they're hiding.
Right.
So they just really don't care that much. But
it's just the thing your parents do.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
And tell us a little bit about your job. Does it harmonize with the creative work?
It does. Right now I work at Yeti Farm Creative. It's an animation studio in town, and I started off as an art director there, working on 2 shows, and right now I'm what's called an effects designer. So
TV shows?
Yeah, animated shows. So I lead a small team of effects artists, and we do visual effects on one of the shows. So it works really well with what we're doing. It's totally different, but also it's feeding that artistic side, and you're getting inspiration from a different source, and it's really fun. Plus, seeing a little more behind the scenes of the animation world. I haven't really worked in an animation studio before this, so it's really interesting seeing how it works, and even getting a glimpse at how something goes from being like a book or a story to becoming a show, and what that journey looks like.
Where are these shows published? Like, is it a cable TV show or?
The one I'm working on now won't be out until I think later this year. There's quite a long lead time in animation, so I think it's either late 2019 or 2020 even sometime, and we're halfway through the entire production. We're doing I think it's 80 episodes, so we just hit the halfway point. So it's been a year.
So it's a new series.
Yep.
Yeah. And will that be shown like North America, all across the world, or is it local? Or
no, it'll be North America for
North
sure.
America.
It's a chorus property, or Nelvana, sorry. But I'm not sure if it's the States or just Canada or what. Like, we're really just the production part of it. So.
Right. I find it so interesting. There's so many businesses in Kelowna that service other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great.
It's
because
amazing.
Like 10 years ago, it was kind of more of a tourist city and agriculture, of course. But, it's changed everything, the real estate market and everything, because there's people actually producing things here that go out to the entire world, not just local.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even believe now that there are 2 animation studios in Kelowna. Like, when I finished school, there was nothing. I was just trying to get any kind of work, freelancing, and now there are 2 studios that...
How many people do you think are employed?
I would say probably 60 at Yeti Farm, and then Bardell has a studio here as well. I'm not sure. I've never been there, but it's probably about the same, I would guess.
Mm.
Yeah. It's just awesome that it's happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Snazzy Cat Capers. It's a series of 3 so far.
Yeah.
And does it get easier to write the second and third? I mean, I think you have to do some pre-planning, right? To make sure that it makes sense as a series.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. And not only that, but some of the learnings that I had when I was working with Club Penguin, kids love story. Like that's the heart and the key of so many things. And so what I tried to do with this series is put little threads of narrative that kids could like pick up on, and they're going to see there are hints in this story that are not realized until book 3. So what we were able to do, because we produced, like I've done the writing for all 3 now, what we were able to do, because they were produced so close together, is that while I was writing the story, like number 3, we could go back and say, oh, Neil, can you please plant a visual hint in the end papers that refers back to this reveal in book 3. So what I really hope is that some kids, just a few, will probably pick up on those Easter eggs and say, oh my goodness, wait a second, and go back and look in book 1 and say, they hinted at that. So that's sort of how we created it. But you're absolutely right. It had to all be planned and pre-planned and built like that.
But it's kind of cool the way our production schedules are at different times, because like Deanna was saying, she's off on she was done book 3 before I even started it. Wow. And so just the way it worked out, because I was on book 2 until that point. So at any point she could, while she's writing, say, what if we did this, or could we add this here, or there are tons of places you can do that. So it's really cool. Yeah,
we were able to really thread story in a visual way too.
Does it have a lot of pictures? The cover is beautiful.
Yeah, we were aiming for... We were trying to get it so that every time you flip it open, you'll see a picture of some kind. So
nice. So almost every page.
Yeah.
And graphic novel pages too. That's becoming a really... It's more of a thing for readers now, young readers especially. So, and our publisher, these people are the most collaborative, creative, amazing people. We were so lucky to be part of their team, and they have lots of great ideas too. So, but they let us do lots of art.
Yeah. Is there a target age demographic for this series?
7 to 10 is sort of what they have.
And do you plan more, or is it 3? That's it.
It's 3 for now. Of course, I've left little story threads that if we do more, we can pick up on those. So we've dropped a lot of narrative threads that we can pick up and weave later if we want to. But
it does kind of wrap up at the end of book 3, but we could definitely continue on.
Right. So are you working on a new one?
Yes, we're working on a new series right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this book is that this actually started as after that goldfish idea that Neil talked about, that first initial idea. We did an entire graphic novel where the fish was the hero and the cat burglar was just a minor character. And that went all the way to a different publishing house, their acquisitions team, and eventually it was rejected. And we were devastated. But in the meantime, that was like 2 years of work. And in the meantime, we discovered that we really liked the villain of that. So that's sort of how this is almost a spin-off of a rejected idea that started at the beginning.
That's interesting. A lot of creative projects, I think, happen like that.
They do. They sure do.
I had many false starts with this podcast, for example.
Okay.
And I thought, what is something that could be a common theme for everybody? And so I love Kelowna. I mean, that's the only thing that each episode tries to have in common is what is your connection to the city? Yeah. But I mean, we talked to psychics and mortgage brokers and lawyers and, all kinds of different people. Right?
Yeah.
So, but many false starts where I do a few episodes and I get discouraged and quit. Yeah. So.
I've written so many books, Luke.
Right.
Yeah, we've worked on tons together. Books and TV show ideas and things like that. And we often find that a little piece of an idea from one of those ones that we've long since put away will suddenly make total sense for whatever this new thing we're working on.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh.
How do you get a publisher? You mentioned your publisher is fantastic. Great to work with. How do you find that? Do you just submit a manuscript and hope for the best? Or?
No, you can't really. If you want to, I think that can still happen in some, like for the smaller Canadian publisher. But for us, we wanted to work with a bigger publisher, and so we submitted to an agent first, and that's the first step, because you don't just get
a good agent,
but they also have to be willing to sign you on, and there are very sort of few great agents who will sign.
Are in need of products.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like mediocre agents that will take you, but it's not going to go anywhere.
I don't even know. We didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Deanna did a lot of research, and we had sort of a top 10 group of people that we wanted to approach. And then we did. Then
we were lucky, and her name is Gemma Cooper, and she works for the Bent Agency out of the States, and she's just brilliant, and we're so lucky to be working with her. And then from there, she has a list of, once we worked out this book idea, and years of working with her.
Yeah, she feeds into the creative as well.
Yeah, she's a very creative and a business genius too. But she and her accent's just fabulous. So
is she British?
She's British. Yeah, she's in London, and she was in New York for a while, and then Chicago. But she's back in London now, and our Skype calls have to be really early in the morning. But she then submits to a group of publishers, like her sort of top that she does, and we were really lucky with this because she submitted it to her top people, and then more than one of them wanted it. So we got to have an auction, which is really rare in the publishing world.
We joked about it a lot before it happened.
We joked about,
can you imagine if that happened?
Yeah, and then it did, and it was like very flattering and also stressful, and I was bawling because I didn't want to say no to these fabulous other people. And yeah. But,
wow, that's great. So, can we buy this book on Amazon or in bookstores, or how do kids
everywhere?
Get it?
Yeah,
Mosaic carries it.
Mosaic carries it here.
You can buy it online, Chapters and Amazon.
Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble has been really good to us in the States. They have it on display, and
wonderful.
Yeah.
So has sales been to your expectations or better?
We don't really know what sales are, except that our publisher said that it's doing great.
Right.
So I think that we get maybe
quarterly reports. Yeah,
we're supposed to get reports. So
and you get a payment every quarter.
Well, no. Once our advance is paid off, then if that happens, then we will get royalty payments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you got to reach a certain level of sales, and your advance is paid off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't really know if it's actually even going to make money, but it's sure fun.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Because I think I covered all the questions I had, and it's super easy to edit, like this little section here where I'm saying.
We are going to be doing an event at the Kelowna Public Library on March 20th. And I don't have the details, but they will. Okay. And Neil is going to do a how to draw session for kids during spring break. So that might be a fun thing to mention. So parents can sign up.
So please send us links, because we'll put in the show notes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And it's really, I don't know if you've seen the podcast in an app, but those links, you can just tap on them. Because if someone's walking or on the treadmill, like, they don't want to stop and like write down the website. They can just tap on it.
Okay.
And it'll take you right to your event page or website or whatever.
Yeah, because we have a website too. So
yeah.
Great.
That's great. So who would you like to nominate?
Well, each of us have someone.
Perfect.
Nick Clements.
Nick Clements.
I worked with him at Disney for almost 10 years, and I'm still working with him now. Mm-hmm. He is a brand and marketing guy, and he's from New Zealand.
Okay.
So he has an interesting story how he got to Kelowna, and he's just a brilliant, great guy.
I just want to make sure I spelled it correctly.
You sure did.
And what's his company name? So we can
It's
find
called The Brand Department.
the brand department.
Yeah.
Great.
But I'll give you his email because you won't find it's not
Okay.
on his website yet.
All right, great. And Neil, you've got someone.
Yeah, I'd love to nominate Todd and Ashley Ramsey. They're the founders of Yeti Farm.
Great.
It's just a really cool story of how they started that studio. And they were both working in animation in Vancouver and wanted to come to Kelowna for their families. And yeah, it's really cool. And now they have this successful studio.
That's great.
They work so hard, those two. They're pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for the book. It's beautiful.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for
I'm
having
going
me.
Thanks
to
so much.
read it to my 8-year-old.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
good.
She'll love it. She loves books, and
Awesome.
she reads a lot, so that's really great.
Good.
Great.
Well,
Thank you.
let us know how she likes it.
I will for sure.
There's some stickers too.
Thanks so
We
much.
have fun things.
You've been listening to I Love Kelowna. We love where we live, and how can you not? With all the provincial parks, pine forests, vineyards, orchards, mountains. On each show, we have in-depth, intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, execs, thought leaders, and creatives, all that make up Kelowna. You can support the show so we can keep producing by going to paypal.me/Luke Menkes. And make sure to visit the official website at ilovekelowna.buzzsprout.com. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. And we hope you had some fun along the way. We'll be back soon. Until then, this is I Love Kelowna signing off.